solve large, intractable problems.
It's a new venture altogether.
Your brain is a wild horse there.
Because remember, writing is not a team sport.
You are not selling horse carriages when there are cars.
I want to be known only as the trusted advisor.
More like a tourist.
Play to Potential podcast.
My teacher once asked us, is it easy to forgive or is it easier to forget? And I was still in class 5 or 6, but I've never forgotten. It is easy to forgive a person, but it is difficult to forget. But I now believe that it is better to forgive and forget. And both you have to move on in life. And you can't be always in a state of frustration and despair that this is what happened. And it's not only in terms of a spouse. I personally think that it can happen in terms of your other relationship. You may have a child with special disabilities, or you may have to look after your parents at a very young age, support them. So life you have to accept what is happening with you and not always keep on fighting and carrying on that frustration. Maybe it sounds difficult, but that little bit of courage and determination you must have to move on.
Welcome to the 95th conversation at the Play to Potential podcast. A series of reflective conversations from leading people from various domains on 3 broad themes: leadership, transitions, and careers. Just like businesses need to think about where to play and how to win in the context of their strategy, I guess we all as individuals need to think about the 2 questions: where to go and how to grow at various points in our lives. These questions become that much harder in a world of abundance, multiplicity of options, and limited feedback. Through this podcast, I hope to share some insights that might help you navigate these questions in a more thoughtful way. While podcasting accounts for 10 to 20% of my time and effort, my primary vocation is that of an executive coach and a discreet sounding board with CEOs and entrepreneurs. I engage with leaders and organizations with a growth mindset and help them play to their unique potential. You can learn more about the podcast and my work at playtopotential.com. That's playtopotential.com. My guest this time is Manjari Jaruhar. Manjari is Bihar's first IPS officer and India's 6th, Kiran Bedi being the first. It's a remarkable story of taking charge of life against all odds when her first marriage, where she plays the homemaker, goes south. It's an inspiring journey of shattering glass ceilings at multiple levels along the way. To put it mildly, as you all would appreciate, Bihar is not an easy state for a woman to be an IPS officer. Manjari has captured several of her reflections from her journey in her recently published book, Madam Sir. The book is a stirring account of a sheltered girl's rise to the top echelons of Indian police service. We speak about the book and much more in this candid conversation. I must mention at the outset that she happens to be the sibling of Pramath Sinha, who's now the chairperson of Ashoka University. We've had the opportunity to speak to Pramath at this podcast many moons back, and you can find him at the guest section at playtopotential.com. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Manjari Jaruhar. Ma'am, it's a real privilege and an honor to be spending time with you. Thank you so much for making the time for the Play to Potential podcast.
Thank you so much for contacting me and having me on your podcast. I was really surprised when I got your message, and it's something new for me, so I'm really excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. It's just a curious conversation, and the three themes I've been curious about in this podcast over the 5+ years are leadership, transitions, and careers.
Okay.
And I've had the opportunity to speak to many leaders, including Pramath, your brother, and other leaders from India and some of the thinkers. So look forward to learning from you. And congratulations on the recently published book, Madam Sir.
Thank you so much. And it looks like you've gone through the whole book very, very carefully.
No, I think it was genuinely an inspiring read to just go through just your childhood and the various challenges that you faced along the way. And maybe a good place to start, ma'am, is just to rewind back to childhood. One of the things I'm curious about is how people get shaped in the first 15, 20 years of their lives. So can you talk a little bit about how you got shaped in the first 15, 20 years?
So my first 15, 20 years of my life is completely different from what I went through later on in life and how my life shaped. So sometimes I feel that there is perhaps no connection in the way I was brought up, but whatever happens in childhood does impact you later on in life. I don't think that one can really cut off from the influences which we've experienced in early life and what happens with you or how you take your life forward. So the first part of my life, my childhood, as you've said, till about 20 years, was extremely sheltered. I was treated as a very, very delicate person, a delicate child among 3 daughters. My brother came much later in my parents' life, and there's a lot of difference between me and my brother, almost 14 years. So I was the eldest child, and the entire focus was to bring me up in such a way that I'm like a perfect girl who would get a perfect husband, which my parents would select. So right in the beginning, when I was staying with my grandparents, it was always, under discipline. We must not do this. We must not go and eat out. We never saw any movies. We didn't go to places where everybody else was going for partying and all. We were not allowed. We were just sheltered. I was being brought up along with my cousins. My parents used to be more involved with their life in the village, and things were happening there. So extremely sheltered. I never did any physical activity. I was rather a sick child, would be quite often sick, would get all kinds of infections and all. And my grandfather, being a doctor, would also be very, very concerned that my health is so bad. So whenever there was any PT display in school or any physical activity, I would carry a message saying that she's not fit, and that's how I would stay out of class. And I never thought that I needed to do anything. Perhaps the only little game I would have played is badminton. That also in my grandfather's lawn and not with the boys. Even when my cousins' boy friends and all came, boys who were their friends, we were not allowed to mix with them. So it was an extremely, extremely sheltered life. And then one fine morning, I thought I would go out. Another big emphasis was that I must study well. So my mother made sure that every evening my homework was done, my marks were good, and all those competitions in school I must participate in. At home, it will be always learning how to cook, how to embroider, how to stitch. My mother herself was very good at these things, so I also picked up from her. So the first part of my life is only to be groomed to become a housewife to a person my parents would select for me. That is the way my whole life was sheltered.
And moving along in the book, you also talk very candidly about the challenges in your first marriage and how you decided to separate and how that made you stronger as a woman. The one phrase that stood out for me was you say that this was the point in life where you took charge of your life. Can you say a little bit more about this phase of your life?
Yes, a lot of people do ask me now. So one fine morning, my parents decided that we'll be going to Delhi. And though I knew that there is some talk of my marriage, they never told me that they were taking me to Delhi to fix my marriage. So then I went there. When I arrived in Delhi very soon in the evening, to cut the story short, the in-laws came to see me, and by evening my marriage was fixed. And next morning we returned to Delhi and returned to Patna, and I started my education as if nothing had happened. And I really did not even understand or comprehend. And when I look back now, I never even asked my parents as to why are you fixing up my marriage? Why is this being done? There was no question. I mean, it was accepted that this is the way I've been brought up and this is the way things will go. So the marriage was fixed. Unfortunately, with everything being good about that family and everything being perfect according to the match they had selected for me, the marriage did not work out. Until today, I have not been able to understand what was it that was expected of me that I did not do in the relationship, because all the time I tried very hard to work it out. And to return was not again my decision. My in-laws, of course, felt that I was not fit to stay in their family. They had their own set ways and mind and all, which I think emanated from having a specially disabled child in the family, with which I think the whole chemistry of the family was very different. But I could not understand. These are my later understandings. And when I came back, my father again wanted me to stay in Delhi, Patna, and study and be a lecturer, or he was again very, very protective. It was a big shock to the family. But then I decided, for something, I don't know how my brain must have worked, I decided that enough is enough. Now I'm going to do things my way. And that flight, I returned from Moscow, and my parents came to take me from Delhi to Patna. But next morning I went to Rao's study circle, even without consulting my parents. They had still not arrived, but I decided that I'll go to Rao's study circle. Now you ask me, why did you think of Rao's study circle? Is those days that was the only study circle known in Delhi, and I'd heard about it. And in my family, we did have bureaucrats. So I knew that these IAS and civil services and foreign service were very respectful jobs in those days. People valued those jobs. And so I said, okay, I will try my hand at this, and I decided to go to Mr. Rao's study circle. That's how my early life and my taking charge. And I think after that, I didn't really let my father so much interfere in my life. One important thing I have to mention to you is that one single thing which my father was very futuristic and he understood was that when he took the decision that I should not go back, I took charge of my career and my life, but my father still took charge of my life, and it was his decision. I was not prepared to break my marriage even then. Even though I took charge of my life, I felt that theek ho jayega, it will become okay in the course of time. But my father put his foot down and he said, nothing doing, now I'm not sending you back. And in those days, it was might have been a very big news. But my father wrote to every relative and said that I've brought her back and she's not going back. So then the context was set.
It's quite rare. Most people
Yes.
hush it up when these things happen.
That is what I thought. And for months, I could not face my friends. I could not face my other colleagues, etc. because I was always embarrassed. I said, what will everybody think? It was such a glamorous wedding and I've come back. But I think my father gave a lot of strength to me at that time. At one point, he did not allow me to go to Delhi and study, which I wanted, and perhaps my life would have taken a very different path. But I'm glad that I didn't study domestic science, because that would have left me in a worse state than what I would have been.
And if I may stay with that, ma'am, I meet several friends who talk about their women colleagues who are in let's call it troubled or difficult marriages where, the woman is not being treated well. What is your advice to women on making it work versus calling it quits? Where is the line,
I think the woman herself has to decide that line. And in case she needs help, she should not feel shy of taking help. Whether she has to go to a counselor, she has to go to a consultant, or anybody in the family who can do mentoring. The first line should be to make the marriage work, because it's important for women. I think it gives a lot of support to them, even for working women, to have this thing, that is what society expects from them. But if for some reason the relationship sours and it's not good, then again they should try for a little while, but not go on and on and on with the marriage. They should try and have a break. It's going to be tough. It is not going to be easy. But unlike me, if you are already a qualified person, suppose you're an engineer, an MBA or doctor or any professional, then you don't have to worry about your bread and butter. Then, you can have a clean break. And why only in a relationship, I feel people, I've written in the book also, that in life, one should not carry frustration, despair, rancor. That pulls a person down. And in all relationships, I believe like this. Perhaps you have to forgive and forget and move on. It's very early in my convent education, they taught me, my teacher once asked us, is it easy to forgive or is it easier to forget? And I was still in class 5 or 6, but I've never forgotten. It is easy to forgive a person, but it is difficult to forget. But I now believe that it is better to forgive and forget. And both you have to move on in life. And you can't be always in a state of frustration and despair that this is what happened. And it's not only in terms of a spouse. I personally think that it can happen in terms of your other relationship. You may have a child with special disabilities. You may have to look after your parents at a very young age, support them. So life you have to accept what is happening with you and not always keep on fighting and carrying on that frustration. Maybe it sounds difficult, but that little bit of courage and determination you must have to move on. That is important for you.
And in this context, you actually referred to a conversation with your friend Radha.
Yes.
And you say that she points out that you need to leave your past behind.
Yes.
To move to a better future.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that exchange and maybe the insight there?
So Radha and Bharti and the three of us were studying in Delhi University together. And Delhi University was so different in those days also from Patna and where I had grown up, very sheltered. These two girls also came from two other cities, but more modern and other modern colleges also. One came from Calcutta, one came from Chennai. So we bonded because we were not Delhi University. We were from outside Delhi University. So we were mostly in saris. We would wear bindis, very traditional. So we bonded. And later after a few months, we discussed so many things. I learned so many things which as a protected person, I would have never done.
So this is at the NPA, right?
No, this is at the Delhi University. When I'm going to Rao Study Circle, and I'm studying in Delhi University. So then one day they asked me, they must have heard rumors because there were people from Patna also about me. I had never talked to them about my relationship and why I'm at Delhi University. But they used to wonder why I'm getting up at 6 o'clock and going to Rao Study Circle. Why am I studying so hard? Even in the evenings, I would be studying. And they were taking university education as a breeze. I mean, you did classes, you also went for all kinds of other activities, enjoyed yourself, partied also. But I would not do all that because I was not brought up like that and I had too much of pressure. So then I told them that this is what has happened. And then after a few weeks, then Radha came up to me and says, and even later on, she kept saying that she asked me quite frequently, how is it that you did not carry any anger and angst against this family and in your life? And we have learned so much from you. That is when I discovered that I had learned things from them and, to be outgoing and do things on my own. I started traveling alone. I started going on a bus. I've written in the book that how I hitched a ride with them. I would have never dared to do those things, go in a bus, etc. So Radha did ask me, and I think that was a determined effort. It was a very, very determined effort. I used to feel very frustrated at times, but I did not allow that to cloud my path on which I wanted. My path was very clear, and at that time my path was not very sure whether I will get into the civil services because it's an unknown thing. But I was determined that now I am going to be on my own and earn my own living. So that was a very, very big focus for me from the other side. My father was well enough to have looked after me all my life and made a settlement and all. I need not have worked, but I was not ready to accept that. If you ask me that why you felt like that, I think I felt like that because I felt that the world around me was so different, and I had not made any effort to understand anything in that world. I had only lived in the world of cooking and embroidery and managing my family. Being the eldest, my mother would often go out leaving the keys of the house with me, and I was very good at managing the family. So these were the things I was taught, and I felt that, okay. There's one more question you asked me in the beginning as to how did your childhood impact you? I said my impact was very different, but there are 2 or 3 things I learned at childhood which I think I should share, because one should not really, I did not cut off, I think, from everything. In childhood, that sense of discipline, that you have to do things in like this. If I have to set the dining table, I have to set it like this. My clothes, if I have to dress, I should be impeccably dressed. I should iron my own clothes and go to school and all. So later in life, these things didn't matter. Like my uniform is always impeccable. I will not wear a crushed uniform. I will not wear an unpolished shoe. And this transfers to everything in your life. If you are making notes, you are writing something in the file, you will not do it in a haphazard way, because you have been brought up in a way where everything is very disciplined and you do it part by part. And the second thing was that my moral values, staying with my grandparents and my father, that was very strong. The value system in my household, like most of us, the times when we were brought up, the value system was very much there. You cannot do anything wrong. You have to do something which is morally correct, and it is under a value system. So these 2 things have also stood me in great stead later in my career, and especially in my police career.
And when you say value system, what are some of the elements of the value system you would highlight?
Some of the value systems which I would like to highlight is respecting age. You know, whatever relationships you have, even if there are differences and you don't like somebody, you don't go and start having an argument with them, and maintaining proper relationships with everybody. Even if there is a servant in the house, if somebody is very much below your rank, you maintain a good relationship with them. Concern for people in the, if I can explain it with an example, if somebody is sick in the family, if somebody needs any help in the family, those things were inculcated in us, that yes, we must do it. Do to others as you wish them to do to you. That was inculcated in the school and inculcated here. We came from a fairly aristocratic background, but we were never allowed to feel as if we are very privileged. My father made sure that we were very grounded.
How did he do that? Out of curiosity, what would he do to ensure that you stay grounded?
First of all, he would make us do every kind of work. If the maid is not there, I'm supposed to iron, I'm supposed to polish my shoes, I'm supposed to cook and help my mother.
No work is beneath you.
So working is in tune. My brother was the youngest in the house and he was very, very small, but my father would make him do all kinds of jobs. Even simple things that relatives are coming all the time. You have to go and receive them. You have to see them off. You have to make sure that they are comfortable. If anything was happening in his business and something was required, because we were in the publishing business, my brother would be asked to go and help in the press at a very young age. My father would take him. So these values, I think we all imbibed from our father and mother. More from my father, I think. This concern for people, helping out, etc.
And back to the point about financial independence, you spoke about that. I have a girl who's 12 and a son who's 8. What's young girls, what are the 2-3 things that parents should bear in mind to set them up for the future? What would you say?
For the girl child, I feel that first of all, we should not be very overprotective about her. And we should not mollycoddle her too much. Like these days, we have a tendency to shelter them also. don't watch this, don't do this, don't that. Yes, to an extent you have to control, but the child should be taught to be also independent and handle all kinds of situations which arise even in school. A fight with another child. If she's had a fight with the child, she should be made to also settle with that child. These days I find that parents will arrive in the school and fight with the teachers. Oh, my child was disturbed by this other friend of hers and all. I mean, if these things are normal, let the child handle it. Then physical fitness in a girl in India, we have to emphasize much more than we did earlier. Girls were not expected to play games and all. I think that they should be. That gives them such a sense of independence and strength, rather than being said that, no, you must only dance or sing and do things like culturally. To be able to do all that is also very good. I think that when you are in a social setup, to know some good cultural activity is very enhancing for a girl. But at the same time, she must learn to be independent, take decisions in her life, stand on her own feet. And education, of course, the sky is the limit. She should be encouraged, and her education should be monitored by her parents. It's not always that she should be left to study whatever she wants. I think that in the initial years, they do need guidance because so much is available.
The reason I was asking was very often, everybody says follow your passion, etc., etc. I was curious to get your opinion on financial independence. Sometimes that is emphasized for the male child, but not adequately for the female child.
No. Maybe I missed that point. Financial independence of the girl child is also very important. It gives her a very strong sense of moving ahead in life, and probably prepares her for a future. If anything happens, it need not be a broken marriage, as I said. It could be any kind of a situation. And she should be able to deal with it independent of her husband's income. He may not be in a position to support her, but yes, he will need to support her emotionally and in any other ways. But financially, if the girl child can be independent, she may have to look after her in-laws, supported by her husband, her parents, a sibling, anybody. So that is important, I think.
And moving forward in the book, you talk about your training in the IPS. And one of the phrases you used, I was curious to understand more. You say, you speak about the need to create a scientific temper to protect the vulnerable sections of a society related to issues around national security. Can you talk to us about the term the scientific temper?
So in the academy, when we arrive at the police academy, I personally think that it was the toughest training because I have no background in outdoor, and the indoor classes I'll come to later on. But the day starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and it can end any time in night, 9, 10, whatever. But again in the morning, you are on the parade ground first thing. So the physical part of the training was extremely tough for me. And you start with running around the parade ground, 6 rounds, nowadays much more, 6 rounds. Then you start the first morning is PT, then there is parade with firearms in full uniform with her 303 rifle, which itself is so heavy. Then you finish that, come for breakfast, about 45 minutes for breakfast, wash, have everything, and then the indoor classes start from 9:30 to almost till 1:30. So in that is where the scientific temper training starts. Like you learn forensic medicine, forensic science, investigation. The investigation I missed. So I used to, later on in my career, I was teaching the investigation paper. But just to clarify to the audience or anybody else, every police case is not investigated in the same way. A murder case investigation is very different from a dacoity investigation. Investigation of a riot case or a rape case is very different from murder or dacoity. Sometimes you may have murder and rape, you may have a dacoity and rape and riot and rape. All these may also happen. But the scientific temper I would like to explain. First, you must know all the laws of the country. So every law possible, I think there must be at that time 500 laws. Each law had to be learnt absolutely end to end, especially the Indian Penal Code, which defines a crime. What exactly is a murder? What exactly is a dacoity or a rape or even a physical abuse? What public order, defiance of public order? So everything is explained there. What constitutes a crime? Then the Criminal Procedure Code explains how the investigation can be done, how the arrest, bail, what happens in the court, that is defined. And then there is the Evidence Act, which is really archaic in many ways, but it is the Evidence Act of the country. So there is the Evidence Act, which evidence you have to collect, which you do through forensic medicine and forensic science, how the fingerprint, hair print, everything is collected, and then how that is linked up with investigation of that particular case, and then how it goes to the court. So this entire gamut is taught to you. Plus, a simple thing like if there is a bullet mark, what kind of a weapon has it been fired from? From the naked eye, you can also tell you, you can understand. So everything is taught in a very, very scientific manner. How to handle a public order, what are the steps before you start firing, what are the things you must do before you open fire on a mob. It's not like a blanket chit that you can do. So all this is taught. In the second half, in the afternoon, again the scientific temper, which they inculcate in you, is everything to do with wireless training. Those days, we had that other wireless. Now, of course, you have so many sophisticated things. Wireless training, motor training, how to open a stepney and change a stepney, how to start a car, the battery, the water. So all these things, even how to drive, rudimentary driving is also taught to you. And in the evening, after you finish all this, you start playing games. And the games are also which your men can play. So it is hockey, football, basketball, and volleyball. So all the games which you have to get onto the field, and every day by rotation your number is announced which game you have to play.
Oh, it's you don't pick one, you play everything.
You have to play all four. You have to be proficient in all four. So whatever we could play, we had to play. So this training was extremely tough, but let me tell you, the interesting part was that for the qualifying for the IPS, you are never tested for physical. In all other police recruitment for constables, sub-inspectors, DYSPs, the physical test happens first. If you qualify in the physical test, which is outlined, like maybe for the constable, it will be running so many kilometers in so many minutes. It will be high jump, long jump, throwing a ball, throwing a javelin, all these kind of things. For the DYSPs, it will be a little less. But for the IPS, there is nothing like this. So when I qualified and arrived at the IPS, and if my knees are all broken and my thighs are all swollen and my ankles are bad, the same thing is happening with the men, because they have also been pen pushers before coming for the IPS training. So that is a solace. Look,
I'm not alone.
I'm not alone. They are also suffering. I'm also suffering. But there were girls who were much better than me. There was a girl in my batch with 2 daughters and 2 children. I was amazed. I mean, she was also doing the same things. She was, of course, also suffering. But there were other girls who had lived in a hostel, done gymnastics and all, and they did everything very well. So these things created a scientific temper. And apart from this, the games and all, then of course you're firing. You have to be proficient in every kind of fire. You're blindfolded and you have to open the weapon and close it. You should be so proficient, should know your firearms extremely well.
You talk about hitting 5 bullseyes in the very first attempt, which was
a fluke, I think. And then horse riding. People ask you that how did you do horse riding on certain days of the month? It must be so difficult, but the body adapts to everything. It adapts to everything by the time you finish. So it really changed my character there. I took a decision to take the IPS, but it toughened me. And I think the training really equips you for the police job.
And are there moments where you really say, should I should I continue or should I, I'm not saying you, but your classmates, where this is beyond me,
This is beyond me. They did suffer like that, but maybe I could talk about that later on when I'm talking about my days at the NPA. But in my academy, there was nobody who left the service. And I felt in sync with whatever was happening. I was never ever feeling that where have I landed. I was internally very happy that I was able to do all this. And the number of women joining the police was so few that all the training staff, the director and all were very keen, and they would keep asking us, are you able to cope? Are you able to do something? Like the first time they asked me to do the round of the parade ground, I could not. My stomach started paining and I thought I will throw up. But by the time I passed out, I commanded my platoon and I was the platoon commander, and it was a big thing in the passing out parade. So the academy really sort of encouraged us to put in our best. They never sort of pushed us back. Like when I came to the district, there the pushing back happened. Here, they are all the time interested that you don't leave.
And going back to one of the things you said where, again, as a layman, you said the riot case, the investigation of a riot case is different from a murder case, from a rape case. One is sort of the legal element. What is difference from an approach perspective? In what ways?
So a murder case, sometimes there are different kinds of murders. It could be the murder of a husband, a murder of a child, a murder of an acquaintance, or murder of a person even unknown lying on the field. So first thing is to identify the person who has been murdered. Then you have to find out why he has been murdered. Was there some kind of an enmity, or was he responsible for creating a situation in which people could not tolerate what he had done? A husband could be murdered. It could be any reason. Some lazos are there, that's why he has been murdered. The murder of a woman has also a different connotation. Is she murdered for dowry? Is she murdered because the in-laws are unhappy with her, or the husband doesn't like her? So, and then there is the murder of a child. I've seen it. That is also very unfortunate. I've written, I think maybe I have not probably written about this, like that in the book, that how parents were standing at a bus stand to go home early in the morning. They were visiting their home in the village. They were standing at the bus stand and with their 5-year-old child, a beautiful child, very fair and good looking. And one person who came and swooped and picked up the child and went and murdered him and severed his head and offered it in the temple. So between the bus stand and the temple, there was hardly not even half a kilometer. I mean, the parents could see he was carrying the child. And he had murder. In the morning, the call came. So I went, this is another kind of a murder. What is there's no enmity. There is nothing. This is blind belief or something. The crowd had already gathered, picked up that man and beaten him and, beaten him so hard that he was unconscious. He had been taken to the hospital. Now, my job as a police officer is to save that person because he's an accused who should be put up for trial. But let me tell you, that day, I did not bother. I really did not bother about telling the doctors, save him and put him on IV and all. I said, let him die. I mean, I was also so charged. And the doctors told me that, he's got so much of head injuries, there is hardly any chance. And we're in a remote village, in a dispensary he has been put. So I just let it be. So every murder case is different. And how is a murder case different from a riot? In a riot, a situation builds up. Two people are fighting with each other and this situation is building up, and then they didn't want to kill anybody, but in the heat of the moment, due to a fight or something, arson takes place and they burn houses or they burn cars, they burn buses and all, and in that somebody may be killed. So that is not premeditated murder. That is a murder which has happened in a riot. So you have to treat this murder as part of a riot case. And then there is that rape and murder. You've already read so much about it, I'm sure, in the social media.
I wanted to pick up on this art of interrogation, and in a way, given the work I do in the corporate side, I used to be a recruiter earlier, and one of the things you're trying to do is to really, people are always telling you nice things about their journey, etc. But your job is to sort of get to the absolute truth, what actually happened. Give us a sense of, if you had to talk about the art of interrogation, what are some of the techniques or practices that let's say the business world could learn from the forces?
So the police force is quite given a bad name because of the interrogation techniques. That, of course, is there.
Right.
And we try more and more not to get into this. And but I will not say that we would have never used it. That harsh interrogation techniques were not used. But let me tell you one thing. There are a lot of now, of course, we have narco tests, etc., which can help you, lie detectors and all are there. But your question about genuine interrogation to find out
what are some of the practices which can be replicated,
yes,
or which we can learn from?
So one thing I feel is that every person who's committed a crime wants to hide the crime, and maybe perhaps even in your world they may not always be ready to tell you the truth about their careers and all. But it is our job to find out the truth. So you have to persist. And you have to win the confidence of that man, that you are ready to help him, and if he comes out. Hardened criminals will not come out even out of that. They will not tell you. And that is maybe the time when people think that maybe third degree or whatever you've heard of works. Or now third degree is also not possible because these things are now not only looked down upon, but every police station has cameras and the social media. The minute a criminal is arrested, the entire press comes, the TV comes and all. And even in my times when social media was not there, these things, if you give a license to, then it doesn't stop. So your question is how to find out. I would say that it's also an experience. From experience also you learn. Like you can say after asking 5-10 questions that this man is telling a lie, that this man is not telling a truth. So you have to also build up your own capacities about interrogating and trying to find out the truth, because every time the intention is to come to the truth, to reach the truth. What is it this is bothering? And if you are a good interrogator, or if you are counseling somebody and all, and you would have become an expert, you would have counseled so many people, you can judge that this man is not telling you the truth, but you have to persist. And at one point of time, he will break down and tell you. And in that situation, empathy is very important with the person whom you are talking to. Like for a criminal to talk about his family, his wife, his child, your child is at home, you should be harassed. What do you think? If you go to school, everybody will talk about you. Why don't you come out clean? Sometimes these things also work and people do tell you the truth. They can tell you the truth. And very often people do a crime in the heat of the moment and they are remorseful and they confess. They confess. But unfortunately, confession to a police officer is not admissible. So we have to find for other evidences to support his confession. And in a murder case, if a man confesses that yes, I did kill him and I threw my clothes there, then that evidence becomes very admissible, because it is evidence leading to discovery of a fact after the confession, which is admissible. So if a firearm he has used a katta or a sword or a haswa to kill somebody, and that instrument is discovered, as he says, and there are blood marks, then that gets admissible, and his confession to me also gets admissible. So in the corporate sector, I think you have to build that skill, and you have to reach the truth, and people will break down if you keep on continuously asking that why did you do it, and empathize with that person. Empathy, I think, is I would say is important with that individual.
That's a great point. Actually, in these situations, empathy is not very often you would think that there isn't a need for empathy because you're questioning him or her. But it's interesting that when you bring empathy, then it's easier for the person to start trusting you. And
yes, personally, Deepak, I think empathy is something which I would really put a lot of emphasis when I'm thinking back with you. And in your kind of situation, empathy will play a big role, because this is what now I'm doing when I'm counseling younger people. I put myself in their shoes and try to understand things from their perspective. So that helps when I'm a mentor to some girl. I don't only start talking about her work, I go beyond her work. Where is she coming from? What was she doing earlier?
Understanding their world and relating to their world. Got it. The one thing I want to understand, ma'am, is, in the corporate world with leaders, very often I end up talking about the art of listening. I'm curious about your take. Sometimes I'm sure in your line of work, whether it's interrogation or otherwise, listening plays a big component to really understand what's going on. What have you learnt about the art of listening?
My children always tell me that I don't listen and interrupt. But I think in the office scene or in my career, you had to be a very good listener, especially if, the interrogation is going on and you are just an observer. Because very often, you may be not the interrogator, some junior person is doing the interrogation. And in the police academy and other places, I've attended a few courses in communication, how communication is so important that, that you might have also heard that exercise that you're conveyed a message and then you're supposed to convey that message to 10 other people, and somebody is just saying that a helicopter is landing on the runway to a constable, and then he's reporting this to the control room, and the control room understands it as if somebody's a VIP is coming in the helicopter, and this message, by the time it reaches the DIG, it is as if some VIP is landing and terrorists are attacking him, and the entire force is getting galvanized. So just to show us how communication can be distorted. So listening is very important in our careers, and especially when we were in the field, we had wireless. So it was not that one person spoke. When a person was speaking, you had to listen very carefully as to what he is telling you, and then only can you respond. And very often you are the SP of the district and he's asking you instructions, whether I should send the force, what should I do, or dead bodies lying on the road. Where should I send it? Should I send it to this hospital, that hospital? So I think that listening is an art, and to listen exactly to what that person has said. And many people tell me that I was very good at listening and recording. Now, I think that is because of my English education. That because I had studied in a convent school and I was a literature person, I could write. I believed in writing everything. Now we believe in recording. My children also send me messages. If they want to discuss something, they'll send me a message. But somehow I think that recording makes you put down your thoughts very carefully. And also at a subsequent time when you need to remember those things, then also it becomes very important. So whether you write and record, or whether you now record everything on the internet or through the mic or through your phone, listening is very important, and understanding what you are trying to listen to and where is that man coming from. So listening is a very important tool, and it can only be if you concentrate properly and your mind is a little less agitated about what is happening around you and listening to what is more important.
One is the listening to the words of what somebody is saying. Back to your point earlier, what do you look for in body language, especially during an interrogation, whether you're doing it or your colleague is doing it? Are there lessons we can learn in terms of what cues you look for in terms of the non-verbal communication?
Body language communication, I think, is very important because it shows the person's attitude and the way he's sitting or the way he's, whether he's hunched, whether he's bowed down, whether he's sitting arrogantly, the way he's talking to you. So the body language communicates to you and makes you understand whether this man is trying to put you off, push you off, or he's genuinely with you and he's probably just answering questions as you are putting it out to him. So body language, these things can happen only with experience. You cannot learn it overnight. And you can only, as I said earlier also, empathy plays a very, very important role. Like an inspector would tell me that, Madam, ye jhoot bol raha hai. Being a woman, I would be empathetic to that criminal. But the inspector will tell him, Madam, ये झूठ बोल रहा है. इसको मैं ठीक से अभी पूछताछ करूंगा. So what is that झूठ ठीक से पूछताछ करूंगा? He will of course give him a few slaps, which he will not do in front of me. But they have a knack. They would tell me. So I think it is with experience. And with experience, perhaps even I learned that, okay, of course, when I become senior, then I'm not looking at that level of people. I'm now then communicating with my commandant who has been charged with something. I'm communicating with a disciplinary action incident where I'm talking to people who are senior, who are already in the service. They may be even older. Sexual harassment at workplace has become a big issue these days. So there also, if I'm conducting an inquiry, then I have to judge whether this woman is telling the right thing, whether this man is telling me the right thing. Now I can say that it comes to me intuitively, that I know by asking a few questions whether I'm on a track to break him down or break her down and get, because even women hide and say a lot of false things. I don't say that even in a sexual harassment case, it's always the man who's wrong. Women also implicate people wrongly.
The other thing you talk about in the book, ma'am, is about balance. You talk about, just getting the right balance between how harsh you are or how lenient you are with the staff. How have you thought about your style and thought about balance in your career?
So I think balance is very, very important in one's career because in the police, we are in a very tight hierarchy. So my decisions will impact the entire force with which I'm working, who's working under me. Any decision I make, any harsh decision I put or want to implement, it can affect everybody. Similarly, my behavior with them has to be proper, correct. We must remember that the constabulary or the junior staff of ours doesn't live with families. Only 14% accommodation is allowed to them. So they are living with their without their families, and they have their own pressures. Letters are coming. Now is the time of STD, phone, video calls, etc. These are all now the modern ways of communication. So a constable gets agitated if something between the wife and the mother-in-law, they are not getting along, or the child is becoming a rebellious child and he cannot handle it. So all kinds of pressures are on that man. And on top of that, you are telling him, now go for this duty, go for that duty. Oh no, don't have your dinner just now. Dinner will be served at 5. First finish this examination duty, or take this convict to the jail. So we are doing all kinds of things. So we have to have a proper balance. And one example I will tell you, I was a DIG posted in the Bokaro steel plant, and there was a young ASP, a well-meaning guy. And then one day I was told that he was going in with his driver in the jeep, and in the jeep he got into some argument with the driver and called him Sala, tumne kyon nahi kiya? He used the word Sala. So this driver turned around and he said, "मैं आपका साला लगता हूँ क्या?" Sala in Hindi also means a brother-in-law. So he asked him, "मैं साला लगता हूँ क्या?" So then this guy also got agitated and perhaps slapped him. Now, slapping a constable or saying this kind of conversation, and this is now a paramilitary force in which I'm working. Now this will not be tolerated even in a district police, but in those days the paramilitary has its own sense of discipline and hierarchy and everything. So when I heard about it, I heard that the drivers were very agitated. So then I called both of them. First I called the young officer. I said, why did you do it? He said, in the heat of the moment I did it. And I said, but suppose in the heat of the moment you called him that, and he had driven you very fast and that had led to an accident. Where would you have been and where would I have been? What is it that I would have answered my bosses as to why a young ASP has met with such a serious accident? He could have done anything to you. He was at the wheel and you're shouting at him. So, but then it is a matter of indiscipline. Everybody knows that driver ne officer ko sala bula diya hai. So his prestige has also to be maintained. I can't hurt him because maybe he's a young trainee and what will happen to him? So first I told him, I'm calling him and you have to apologize to him. So then that man came. I said, kya hua tha? So he narrated the incident कि मैं चला रहा था, साहब बिगड़ गया, हमको ये बता, तुमने ये क्यों बोला? You are a constable. Are you supposed to say like this to your this thing? Whatever he had said to you, you could have come and complained later on to him when things were quieter. He was also angry. You were agitated. You should not have done this. This is wrong. And henceforth, you will not misbehave with your seniors ever. This is a service and you have to respect hierarchy. After dealing with him, I told him in front of this guy that आज आपको ये officer जो हैं, ये आपको apologize करेंगे. So he was quite taken aback. So I had already briefed the officer. So this officer also told him कि मुझसे गलती हो गया, आगे ये बात नहीं होगा. I said, now close the matter and you now have to still continue working together. Because I could have easily transferred them separately. I said, no, you have to work together and find out a way of dealing with you. But this sala and calling names and you behaving like this young officer was a little hot-headed. He used to have problems, but it was a lesson he learned, and the entire force understood that madam is not going to condone and she's not going to let this constable go free and she will not let this officer go free. So that balance you have to maintain in your service and your dealings with people. If your boss has said something wrong to you, you may not be able to tell him and reply to him immediately. Like, why did you tell me like this, sir? Why did you do this to me, sir? You should not do it. But at a later time when things have quietened down, you can go to him and explain to him that, so that day you spoke to me like this, it was not right. And I think bosses will also be better in behaving in a normal way with them. And that book, I've written in my book about my SP getting angry with me when that murder had taken place and that dacoity. Somebody asked me in the later on, because some of the characters are still there in my state, that, oh, so and so was like this, but later on he brought you and told you that the local MLA is asking for you, and what did you feel that time? I said, I didn't feel anything. I don't have a rancor against him. I just took it that, okay, it was a bad day for him and I was so happy that I had discovered that case and successfully investigated that I didn't care what he had said to me. So that is the way it is.
Recently in the podcast, I spoke to a gentleman who's spent a lot of time studying the Mahabharata. And he talks about leadership and says, there are several moments of Dharam Sankat where there's no one right answer. You need to find a path which, like the example of the hot-headed superior and a hot-headed driver.
Yes.
You had to find a middle path where both of them get the message at the same time. At the same time, you don't want to let them go, but you still need to. So I guess that's a skill. Is that something that came naturally to you, or is that something that how do you find the middle path through situations?
So it is not always necessary to find a middle path. You have to cut the clutter and say that this is right and this is wrong. And my attitude to work has always been like this. If you ask me that what do I live by, I live very strongly between right and wrong. I like to always distinguish who's right, who's wrong. Until I reach that conclusion, I'm very disturbed. This is with me. And you may say that it puts a lot of pressure on me and I feel these sentiments very strongly. But I like to see everything in black and white. for me, it is very difficult to see gray areas. I really don't know whether it's an asset or what, but my style of working is clear cut. Black hai aur ye white hai.
I was also curious, in a profession like the police, you come in touch with a lot of human suffering, if I may.
Yes.
Sort of the negative end of the human condition. How have you managed your mind to stay positive, especially when it comes to being a mother, when it comes to being a wife, when it comes to, who you are outside of work? I'm sure this has an impact on who you are as a person. So how have you, talk to us a little bit about how you've managed your mind through this journey?
So, unlike, because my husband is also a police officer and I've seen mostly male officers dealing with things, I feel that I am a very emotional person. Like if you ask me to talk about my father, probably my throat even now will get very constricted and I'll have tears in my throat. But at a crime scene, if something has happened to a wife or a mother, or something has happened which is unusual, and there are emotions involved in the people who are undergoing that, who have experienced that crime, it affects me. And often tears come to my mind, and I've written very openly in the book also that I have cried with the people. I think that certain emotions in life are universal, and whether it happens in Bokaro or it happens in USA, it will be the same emotion. So, and I don't hide my emotions because it comes naturally to me. So my officers also get sometimes very stunned that why is madam crying? If I have a woman clinging to me and saying save so and so, or my child has died, then my natural instinct is to cry with them. But when I come back home and I have my own child clinging to me that pick me up in your lap and all, I somehow did not transfer that emotion to the home. I did have that ability to leave it at home. And recently, when the book came out, my daughter-in-law asked my son that, did you know that this has happened and this happened with your mother and all? They say that no, Amma never brought these emotions home. So we were quite sheltered from these emotions. And I think that was another mother's instinct at that time. I wanted to shelter them from my own life, which was not consciously, but I did not want to bring all those stories home and let them get affected. And also I was very protective about them. And I identify, somebody asked me, if you were to have dinner with somebody, whom would you have dinner with? I said, I like to have it with Michelle Obama. So that person asked me why. I said, I think that I identify with her. I read her book. And I said she also came from a very different background. Then she gets plummeted. She was very highly educated. She gets plummeted into becoming the wife of the president of the United States. But how protective she was about the children. How the security staff should not overwhelm the two girls. In the school, they should not be made to feel that they are something special, and they should not be intruding into their lives. All the time, her concern is for the children in one part of the book. The other parts are about her professional. She herself is a very professional. But that I really identified that as a president of a country, she is also so affected by what should happen to her two girls. So I was also very particular that my children should not be influenced by the trappings of my power. You see, when I'm in a district, I'm like a king over there. Everybody says, SP is coming, red vehicle is there with a red light, and I have security around me and all. If I went to a school, everything was cut off. I will not go as an SP to the PTA meeting. Many people will do it today. They will go in a uniform to show their strength there, but I will never go. So I like them to be sheltered, that they should not imbibe these extra powerful feelings that they are the SP's children or they are a police officer's children. They should be brought up the way we were all brought up. And in a district, you really become a very powerful person because the position we are holding. As a DIG of Patna, you can imagine what it was. Now you have to keep the children sheltered. So I think that I was able to close my official uniform and my official feelings when I came home, and I did that consciously. I did not want to do it. Put
and
the
just
children through
staying
this.
with that, ma'am, that would have taken a toll on you. That sort of creating a wall at some level also
Yes.
puts a little bit of pressure. How did you handle that? What was
Yes.
your mechanism to stay sane in maintaining two separate compartments?
I think my husband would have helped. He would take charge of certain things, because there were often days when I could not come home, or there were days when I was out the whole night in the initial years of my career when I'm handling the field. Later on, I go to the police academy and it is different. But those pressures I could discuss with my husband, and there was no other way of handling. I mean, it is quite isolating when you're in the district and you can't talk to everybody about the pressures you're going through. So if my husband was posted with me, because very often we were posted separately, but I really did not have a mechanism to handle. And yes, it was a lot of pressure. But one thing I like to tell working women is that their home should run on an autopilot. Like I had in-laws staying with me, or I had a lot of guests coming in because they needed help, they needed support. So the household should be geared in such a way that the meals are available, the children
dependency
are
on the woman is limited. The dependency is limited in a sense.
Limited. Then when I come home, then everything is in place. So for that, you have to make that effort to find somebody and I've heard a lot of women officers talk about this. And I think I imbibed that also from them, that you must have some proper help at home and don't be dependent on the police help, which is like form of orderlies and all. Spend a little money and have people who are really your own and who can travel with you from one district to another or from one posting to another. And when you come home, things are in place. When you don't come home and then start cooking and then looking after the child, then you spend some quality time with the children, see their homework, whether they have done, whether they have had their food and all, instead of now giving them a bath, giving them this. So you have to balance it in that way. And this has to be a conscious decision that you don't carry the pressures of the office to your home.
Ma'am, the other theme I'm curious about, which comes through very clearly in the book, is how both you and your husband grew in your respective careers. What would be your advice to couples where both the husband and wife want to pursue their independent careers? What have you learnt about, if you take a long view over 2-3 decades, what does it take to have two flourishing careers? What are some of the moments where, both the husband and wife have to play their respective roles?
Yes. I think over the years, because we are both in the police job, which is considered one of the challenging jobs of the field and in the home, a lot of people have asked me this question as to how I managed. And after writing the book also, people have been writing to me and saying that, can you advise us how to handle careers of my husband and myself? There are a couple of things I would like to say. First of all is that the desire to be in the career and the desire to be in the marriage is equally important. You have to have that desire that I want to work this marriage, I want to keep on working. Once your goal is that I'm going to do both, then you have to find ways that it works. And every time there has to be a give and take. It cannot always be that your career will keep on soaring and your husband will just be beneath you to help you soar. Or it cannot also be that you allow your husband to always push your career down and he makes sure that his career goes up. So in the police job, which is so hierarchy bound, and I did not have a choice. In the corporate sector, you may have a choice to leave this and go here. In the police, we don't have a choice that to leave the job and go. So how did I balance? We balanced by once, and we are of the same batch. So you can't have 2 SPs in the district. You can't have 2 DIGs in a range. You can't have 2 IGs. So one has to, there are many posts of DIGs. So sometimes you take a DIG's post, which is a field job, then your husband takes a job which is a table job, or like a CID or in intelligence, and vice versa. He decides to do a field job, then you take a job which is maybe for training or special branch or some other branch. The same thing is as SP we decided like this, that my husband decided that okay, the children are small, you do Bokaro because it has all the amenities of being a mini town, and this thing, it has hospitals and people are educated and stuff like that. And he went to a very remote area and went to work in Munger, which was a totally criminal infested area. It was his decision, because I also cannot request that both of us will do this district. It just, the state will post you. And as you've seen in my career, there have been overnight postings for me. I was posted overnight from Bokaro on a Saturday. I'm told to come to Delhi and work on Monday morning. So you leave everything. My son is in class 10th. And then my husband steps in and he says that, okay, I have a stable job. I'm going to stay. You go first. But once I have arrived, then I keep on waiting, tell the government that if there can be, and the government is very supportive, mostly supportive. They keep on waiting, but it took another year before he could get posted to Delhi. So this balancing in the career of a husband and wife is very important. And you have to decide who will take what path. And do not always push that, no, I must do this and you must do this. It should be, we must do this and he must do that. That we feeling should be there, and decide that career is important and my job is important. So I always tell women, for very, very flimsy reasons, they will give up their job. I said, never ever give up your job. Find a way to handle your job. Why must you spend so much money and your parents have made so much of effort, spent money in training you, educating you, and then you just say that you will leave the job for some very frivolous reason. Maybe if the possibility in the corporate sector is there to take a sabbatical for 2 years, but it may not always be possible. So you have to find ways, get some help, compromise, get your in-laws, get a support system, be accepting of other ways to handle your things rather than thinking of always leaving. So I'm totally against women leaving jobs. I feel they have to and they must work it out with their husbands and find a way to get supported at home.
This is your host Deepak Jayaraman here. If the topic of managing dual careers is of interest, you might find my conversation with Jennifer Petriglieri pertinent. She's an associate professor at INSEAD and is the author of the book Couples That Work. She speaks about 3 transitions that dual career couples go through in their lifetime, each one at a different stage of their lives.
One of the things I found when I first started interviewing couples and looked at my data was that, couples didn't struggle all the time, but neither was it a smooth ride all the time. And the struggles they face really came at 3 points in their career and life journey. And these points were actually rather predictable. And as you said, the book is organised around what I call the 3 transitions. And I can walk you through them very briefly, but they all revolve around essentially a developmental question that the couples are wrestling with. So the first transition revolves around the developmental question: how can we make this work? How can we structure our lives in a way that we can have 2 careers and a relationship and thrive in that arrangement? And it's a question that all couples face in the first period of their relationship together. And what's important to understand is that they face this whether we get together at 18, at 38 or at 68. We're all going through the first transition. And the reason this first transition here comes is if you think back a few moments to the first few months or years when you were in the relationship with your partner, the honeymoon period, it was wonderful. And part of the reason it's wonderful, apart from its new love, is although you may feel very committed to each other, you're essentially living on parallel tracks, that you have the career path you had before you met, you had your friends and family, and you've layered on top this wonderful relationship. What's not to like? But that never lasts, because eventually couples will hit a life event or a tough choice that means they need to combine those parallel tracks into one life. The second transition is really interesting because it's linked to our career stage. It's linked to the stage that we typically think of as mid-career, which roughly occurs around our mid-40s, but it's not necessarily linked to age. It's really linked to career stage. And if we think back to our 20s and 30s and what's happening in our career at that stage, it's a period of striving. But what happens when we reach our mid-career point is that many of us reach a point where we start thinking, maybe that path I'm on, it just doesn't quite feel my own. And of course, it doesn't quite feel our own because we've partly chosen it in response to these social expectations. And when people start having those thoughts, as you will well know from the people you work with in your work on career transitions, and the third transition is actually a really interesting one. So it comes at a later stage when our social roles are changing. So our children, if we've had them, are leaving home. We're no longer the bright young things, the high potential people in our organisations. We've really gone into the more senior role. Hopefully we're managing those people. We're the mentors of the organisation. And this time represents a real time of opposites. So on the one hand, we can feel a sense of loss. Right? I'm no longer that hands-on parent. I'm no longer that bright young thing, that high potential person in the organisation. But suddenly at this third transition is a time when we have the freedom so we can broaden our horizons out from this focus on family, relationship, career to volunteering, to legacy, to portfolio careers, to entrepreneurship, to not-for-profits. And so we see for the first time in our career journey these opportunities to go wide as opposed to go narrow.
To tune into this conversation, you can just go to playtopotential.com and find Jennifer in the guest section. Let's now get back to Manjari Jaruhar.
The other theme I wanted to move to, ma'am, was about transitions. One of the themes we are curious about in the podcast is transitions, especially how people transition into a new role, especially the first 90 days, first 100 days, very often set the tone of the person in that role. And you speak about quite a few experiences, especially I think one of them that stood out for me was as ASP at Danapur. You say that you wanted to send a very clear signal and you take some actions in that context. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you've modified your approach to transitions depending on the context?
Okay. So when I start my career, the DG is not ready to, at that time there was an IG, they were not ready to accept me, they didn't know what to do with me, they were not ready to post me. Everybody was sort of saying that they'll get Kiran Bedi's file and then they'll decide what to do with me. So when I'm now getting posted in a subdivision, the subordinates are also there, they are curious, and the bosses of course are unhappy. My experience is that subordinates accept you much faster and they only want two things from you, whether you are just and whether you know your job. So these two things you must equip yourself. In any job, you must know the job which you have been asked to do, and you must also equip yourself by being just to everybody around you. In the corporate sector, if you're posted somewhere, you must know what is your job content and who are the people around you. Maybe you have a EA or you may have an assistant or a clerk or whatever works in the corporate sector, your subordinates. You must be just with them, fair with them. What I mean to say is fair with them. That if they ask for something, then if you're giving them a benefit, then give to everybody if you think they deserve. Or if you think that this one is a little better, then maybe give her something more. But be fair to people and also know your job very well. So giving a clear, and in my own scenario, I am going as a leader of that subdivision. I am always in a leadership position wherever I'm going as an IPS officer. When I'm in the field, I'm going as a leader. I am not going at that time as being in the intelligence branch or the CID branch or something where I'm working with a whole team. Here I have to take decisions. And so how do I take my decisions? So then the most important thing is to understand what is very quickly understand what is the problem of that district. And in the corporate sector, what is the problem which you have been brought here to deal with. So understanding the environment is very important. What you are going to work, what is expected of you. And very quickly you have to give a message. If you have to clean up, then the message should be that I've come here to clean up. If you look at my own career and Bokaro, in Danapur, I'm trying to get accepted because I'm a lady, nobody is ready to accept me. So I'm giving a clear-cut signal that I am meaning business. If you're ready to work with me, I am going to work hard and we'll sort out things. But when I'm going as a district in Bokaro, I'm already told that the previous SP has gone under a shadow. There was a fight and they did not even give him a farewell, and the constabulary was all behaving as if they belong to a union. So there my message to them is from the day one is that I'm a very strict disciplinarian. I'm not going to tolerate this nonsense of misbehaving and beating up people, constables beating up people and all. When I arrive at some other situation, I have this Bhagalpur blindings behind my mind. Then I'm DIG Patna and this SP is going on bumping of people and all. Then I say I will not tolerate this. Call all the inspectors and tell them on their faces that I will not do this. So people may not like it, but you have to be very straightforward with people, understand the environment, what is needed. Sometimes, you need to be very calm with them. Something very troublesome has happened. So then, you have to take everybody along and say that, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do things in this way. We will improve things. We'll improve the organization and we'll try and move forward. So there your job is more to take people along with you. But sometimes when you arrive there, there's been a bad situation with the constabulary and the men and they have fought, then the message is that no, I'm not going to tolerate this. So that understanding the environment and taking the people along, and people will take you seriously only if they know that you know your job. So knowledge is really power, which everybody says. I believe that knowledge is power. So knowledge is required for them to know that you know your job. If they think that you don't know your job, they are not going to tolerate you, whether you're in the corporate sector or in my sector.
They need to find you competent for their job.
And then you have to be fair. The minute the message goes, oh, you're fond of this one, and then also the complexities start in the office and the dynamics change.
You spoke about scanning the environment.
Yes.
What would you do? Just what are some of the things you would do to understand what you've been brought in for? What were some of the mechanisms for scanning the environment?
Yes, that is a good question you're asking me. The first mechanism is that if I have somebody very senior there, then you have to go and ask him that, sir, I've come, I've been told that there are these problems. What do you think? Can you tell me what are the problems here? Ask upfront, what are the problems I'm going to contend with and what do you think I should do? So he will tell you a lot of things from his own perspective. Now it is up to you and your own experience, which of the things which he's telling you is making sense to you and which are the things you are not very sure of. Because you can't, he has been there for a long time and he's looking at things in a different way. You have just arrived. You can't become very hostile to everybody. So he's telling you that you have to be very strict and all, but how can you be strict when you have to take work from them and they are also gauging you? So the thing is that understand what the problem is and then use your own mind and your own training to deal with the problems in the right way. Of course, always keeping in mind your own value system, that what is right and what is wrong, what is just and what is unfair. That is the only way you can move forward in a new situation.
This is your host Deepak Jayaraman here. Building on what Manjari says, one thing that's paramount for a leader settling into a new context is the way she or he listens to the context and the wisdom of the people in the system. Ravi Venkatesan, one of our earlier guests, speaks about how he discerned the theory of change when he took on the role of the chairman of Bank of Baroda.
As you know, that about 18 months ago, I took on a completely new role as the chairman of a public sector bank.
Right.
Now, I know nothing about banking and I know even less about public sector. But yet Raghu and Raghuram Rajan and Jayant Sinha felt that it was important that I take it on, so I did. Now, what do you do in this situation? And you know that the place is filled with landmines and you can step on anything and without realizing it and get blown up. So what you have to do is listen intently, and I did. I made it a very conscious effort to listen to a bunch of people, retired chairman of the Bank of Baroda. Okay, so help me understand from your perspective, what I should do, what the issues are, how would you handle them? And you get a certain perspective. I went and spoke to Vaghul of ICICI and PJ Nayak of Axis Bank. Sure. Even though they've been around and seen the evolution of the banking sector. I've met a lot of our own employees and so forth. So from this, you begin to piece together first the situation, and then out of that emerges a theory of change, which is, what interventions are really going to make a difference and who are going to be the important allies in this. If you don't listen and you come in with a point of view, you start, jumping into action right away, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you haven't built this nuanced and reasonably accurate picture of the landscape.
If this topic is of interest, you might find the curated playlist transitioning into a new context of value. You can just go to playtopotential.com and find it in the curated playlist section. Let's now get back to Manjari Jaruhar.
Over your career, I'm sure you've seen several instances where criminals have turned a corner and have become improved human beings. What have you learnt about driving mindset change in humans? In your case, you probably see a very, it's almost like very often a 180-degree turn, right? Where people, for a set of reasons, end up committing a crime. But I'm sure over your career, you've also seen people who've reformed and have turned the corner. So, do you have a sense of what it takes to transform people?
Deepak, this question I don't think I'm competent to answer. For the simple reason that it's very difficult to reform a hardened criminal. I don't think that I came across a case like that. That later in life I met a person who's reformed and he's become good. My experience is a little different. There was I can only talk about a petty criminal. He was a petty criminal and we needed a resource person. So sometimes these criminals only become your informers. So I thought that this man would become an informer. He's intelligent. So I used him to, Mukhbir. He's coming to give me information, and he did give me some very good information about some of the dacoities, etc., which had been committed. But very soon I heard, in so much so that I would allow him to come to my home office. When my home office was a very segregated place because of the children, and the children were always with me, I never allowed these kind of people to come to my house. Because you never know what they are coming. They may see the children. I'm living alone. Everybody knows that. I never allowed I so much so that this fellow would come to the gate and say that he has come. I would allow him to come to the office to give me information because he was giving very good information. One day I was told that this guy is collecting money on the highway with a country-made pistol. So I was quite taken aback. I was not very sure that, the officers in charge are maybe putting me off track by telling me this experience, or maybe they feel that madam has now an upper hand. She comes to know about a criminal, about a crime even before we know, and she's on an upswing. So maybe he's saying like that. So the other people did not know that he was my informer, and he started but people were wondering how madam comes to know about these things. Where is her information coming? Because I have to catch on the basis of this information, I have to share with the officers in charge and my subordinates to reach those criminals about whom he is giving me information. So they came and said that this man is collecting money. Then I realized that they may be thinking that he's collecting money for me. Who knows, it can be interpreted like this. So I said, okay, well, if he's collecting money and you think he has a pistol, then you arrest him while he's collecting the money. And sure enough, this man was one day arrested on the highway with the pistol and the money, and these people brought him to the office with the pistol in his pocket. He was wearing a kurta and a dhoti, and he comes to the office with the pistol and the money in his hand, and he was very sheepish. He could not say anything. I didn't also say anything to him. I said, just go and lock him up. So he was locked up. So I have really not come across any person who gets reformed, but I have heard that now there are organizations which reform criminals, and then I hear so many NGOs working in this field, but in my days I could not come across any. I have no experience of this.
This is your host Deepak Jayaraman here. In my experience of having worked with leaders, I've realized that outcomes often depend on the mindset of the coachee rather than the skill set of the coach. Marshall Goldsmith, one of the experienced coaches out there, talks about it quite eloquently. When I spoke to him about his key to success, he attributed it to coachee selection.
So I made a chart on one dimension, time spent with Coach Marshall Goldsmith, and the other dimension was called improvement. There seemed to be a clear negative correlation between spending time with me and getting better. Well, I thought, well, this is kind of a humbling chart. I go talk to my client who I spent the least amount of time with, improved the most, Alan Mulally. Alan was CEO of the Year in the United States, unbelievable, probably the best leader in the world in the last 20 years, at least corporate leader. So I said, Alan, of all the people I coached, you improved the most and spent the least amount of time with you. I showed Alan my chart. I said, Alan, the way this chart looks, if you never met me, you'd really been good. So I said, Alan, what should I learn about coaching from you? He said, Marshall, you got one challenge, customer selection. You pick the right customer, you always win. You pick the wrong customer, you're never going to win. He said, don't make coaching about yourself and your own ego and how smart you think you are. Make it about the great people you work with and how proud you are of them. And he said, the CEO of Ford, my job wasn't that different. I don't design cars or build cars, sell cars. I'm going to have great people, and every day I tell myself, leadership's not about me, it's about them.
The one question I'm asking more and more at the outset these days is whether the coachee wants to put in the work. And if I'm not sure about it, I'm beginning to lean away from those opportunities. If you want to dig in more into this space, you might like the curated playlists Driving Change or Coaching. You can just go to playtopotential.com and find these themes in the curated playlist section of the website. Let's now get back to Manjari Jaruhar.
Moving to a different theme, ma'am, one of the themes I try and focus on is judgment. It's such a crucial leadership trait, especially under crisis. And in the book, you talk about the Mandir Kand, where you had to take a split-second call. And you also say in that context that there's a fine line between acting in good faith and jumping the gun. So can you talk a little bit about how you have honed the art of judgment, especially in a tight situation?
So I had gone once to Australia to do a course. It's not exactly related, but this will bring me to your question also. So in this course, the course was about management of change. And for any organization to affect a change, how must you do it? And I picked up a few things in that and I've practiced it. For example, they said that if you want to affect a change in the organization, you should take everybody into confidence and then affect the change. Because if your subordinate is sitting on a chair at a particular desk near the window, next day you tell him you don't want him to sit on that chair and by that desk near the window, you want to please sit there, then all kinds of thoughts come into his mind. Why is she asking me to leave this nice place? Was this a better place? Why is she putting me there? Is she against me? That's why I'm being there. These thoughts will come to that person's mind. And change is very then difficult to affect. So if you want to affect a change in the organization, discuss with everybody and then make a change. So one style of working is that. Now, the other way to effect change is that people will put all kinds of problems before you and say that, no, this cannot be done. This should not be done. They will tell you the other point of view. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. And in that way, then you have to push that change. You have to say that, no, you do this, I believe in this change and this has to happen. Now, how do you take that decision? It is very similar to what you are asking me about judgment, isn't it? How do you judge? So I feel that this change, when you are making this change, when you are pushing down the change, or when you are making a judgment that this is the way to do these things, that comes with a whole lot of experience. And in that experience, maybe your upbringing, the way you have trained, the way you have been, your value system, what have you learned over the careers. So all your experiences and all will help you make that judgment. Just like when you are pushing that change. And that change, you may push, it may be the right change or it may even turn out to be the wrong change. But you should own up that mistake you have made and again revert. But in my own career, I have said that whenever I'm able to take people along and effect a change, it happens. But like there was a simple thing like recruiting women in the police force. The men resisted it. They said, how will we train them? Why should we have women? Where will they post them? There are no barracks, there are no toilets. Where will the food be made, etc. Then I said, I was a woman, 6 among 100, and we were trained by male people, and we were thrown into the field to sort out our own lives and move ahead. These women will do the same thing, and today all organizations have to have women. The CISF, where I first encountered this problem, cannot move an inch without women in the force, because they are deployed at the airport, they are deployed at the metros, they are deployed at all the public sector undertakings where women have to be present to check the women. So this, how do you take this judgment and how do you do this is based on a whole lot of experience. And the richer your experience, as a leader, you will be able to take better decisions.
As a woman of IPS officer, or for that matter as a woman, you actually say that you must always preserve the core of your femininity. And you say that it's a rare gift that should not be circumscribed by ephemeral circumstances. Can you say more about what you have in mind here?
Yes, I think for women sometimes become very, in the police service, they tend to copy men in a big way because that is the model before them. For example, when I joined the service, there was no role model. Kiran Bedi was in Delhi, and I admit that because Kiran Bedi was there, that's why I was able to join the police. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been any police service for me. My father would not have known, or I wouldn't have gone. Even I wouldn't have known that women can go into the police. So, but her image is always very different from my image. And people have always told me, how are you so feminine? And how do you do this? But I have not had a problem. I am in uniform. The rest of the time I'm in saris. I don't wear anything else. I'm mostly in saris. So that is one symbol. That is that your clothes. But clothes, of course, do not only mean that you're feminine because you're wearing a sari. But what I mean by femininity is that the core value of a woman is to be sympathetic, to take the family along. She is the strength, I believe, in the family, of course, with the support of the husband. But she is the person who has to handle her in-laws. She is the person who has to handle her parents, maybe also her siblings, etc. So that core value of love, affection, emotion, all that she needn't give up. She can live with that. And even in the corporate sector, you may become a top honcho corporate executive, but being a woman is your core, and you should maintain that femininity, and that femininity you should even bring to your table when you're discussing important things, issues, how it affects all everybody in the boardroom or every rank of the people you are working with. And I look at my sisters, they are both working in the corporate sector. And in the corporate sector, they always discuss that being feminine and being now that that inclusion and diversity has become a big issue. They want to have more women, and they bring a lot of insights. And I think that we need to preserve that. And the message I want to give to women is that enjoy all your roles. All your roles as a mother, a wife, as a part of the family. It is good to enjoy, maintain humility, maintain relationships with people. Don't cut off yourself. They will also understand that you're busy at a particular point of time. But just because you're in the police or you're a high ranking executive, you don't have to cut off people.
The related point you make, ma'am, is you say that there are some decisive moments where if you don't stand up for yourself, you risk losing not only the respect of others, but also your own self-respect. You actually say that in the context of, I think, one of your superiors.
Yes.
Can you say more about, once again, maybe illustrate this with the example, or just provide a little bit of context around standing up in key moments?
Sometimes women have come to me in tears and saying that, look, this is the way somebody is treating me. I tell them that, why are you teared up first? Stop these tears and go back to that person and say that you will not tolerate this. Nowadays, ever since this sexual harassment at workplace has come, this has become a very big issue. There are two kinds of women. There are one kind of women who will tolerate whatever is being pushed at them, any kind of sexual harassment, and they will not open up, and they'll tear up, and they'll carry their frustration. They'll not even tell anybody at home because it will be like ostracization. But there's that other group of people, if the boss gives her a chit for not doing well and her performance is not good, they will file a complaint against him. So this is what I don't tolerate, and I don't condone this behavior either. I said that if you have been badly treated, sure enough, stand up for yourself, and you must stand up. Now, this particular case, if it had happened in the case you're talking about, if it happened during this time, it would have been definitely treated as a sexual harassment case. But in those days, these laws were not there, these decisions were not there. This man would not do anything overtly, but the entire department knew that he was a corrupt person. And he had this habit of going to everybody's room, using their STD phones quietly, using everybody's car, using any other kind of perks. And then what he irritated me with was that asking for my note, which I had written about a particular murder case in which I had found some of the family members to be accused. A woman had been murdered, and the bail was coming up, and he wanted to see my supervision note, because these notes go to the court to find out whether this man is really guilty or not, whether he should be given bail. So I was not responding to him, not giving him the file. He had read the file, but I was told he wants to Xerox the file and give it to the accused. So I was not responding to him, and then he came to my room, which is unheard of in those days, to go to a subordinate's room. So when I tell him to get out of my office, that time I never thought that I was this thing. I was in a rage. I was in a real rage. I wouldn't advise anybody to be in a situation like that. But if something like this happens, then the rage also becomes justified. And you must hit back and say that he did not do anything physically, but he was he was just calling me to his room for that file. And he wanted that. There was no physical behavior against me. But that itself annoyed me because of my own value system, when I don't want things to be done in the wrong way in the police department. So then what was strange was that I'm still trying to find my ways in Bihar police. The entire department supported me. So much so, the IG transferred me immediately from under him. He was not my reporting officer anymore. And one senior DIG said that you should put everything on record. So he helped me draft that letter. And we put everything on record, and we, in case he does anything in future, he did not dare. And years later, he again came to me and asked me some help for getting his son a promotion or something wherever I was working. It was too funny. But a woman has to stand for herself. And if anything overt is happening to her, she must immediately rebel and must not accept it. And there have been cases when I found, as a scene, can I give you an example? There was a case of a lady, she was in rank of an inspector. Her husband had been transferred out, and the commandant was telling her that you also now go with your husband and vacate the quarters in that place. Because as I told you, that quarters are limited. Living quarters are very limited for the force. So that needed to be given to the next officer who had been posted there. She was not ready to leave for some reason. And she was not ready to go to her husband wherever he was posted. Maybe her children were studying here or something. But then the other inspector has to bring his family also, isn't it? So the commandant gave her a few notices, and immediately she filed a sexual harassment case against him. So that time the law had not come, but the Visakha guidelines were already in focus. We were following the Visakha guidelines, which is like a law because it was the guidelines laid down by the Supreme Court of India. So then the sexual harassment case started getting inquired into, and it was given to a lady officer with some members and all. There is a guideline for that. This lady member found the commandant totally guilty and sent her report to the headquarters, her findings. Now, everybody knew the background. I was keeping away from it because it is not my duty to follow every case. But everybody knew, and this commandant was going to have his promotion. So the promotion was held up. He got isolated in this thing. He had a good record. He was due for his promotion. Everything fell flat for him. He came and met me, madam, my career has been ruined. I only did my job. I said, I asked this lady officer that when I looked at the file as to what has happened, why did you do this? She said, no, I could not write against another lady officer. Now, this is not a ganging up story, she should have. So I told the officer who came with this file, madam, kya kare, isko kaise deal kare, isko aap hi dekhiye. I said, I'm not going to see you people find a solution and this is not my job. I have looked at the file, there is no merit, but you have to sort out the file because she has written that the commandant is guilty and given her version. So they took the file to the DG and this, that, it went around for 2-3 months. It went around like that. I was just keeping quiet because it's not my job. Our jobs are very clear cut. After some time, the DG called me and he said, Manjari, nobody is going to sort it out. You please sort out and I will go by your judgment. Go through the file and see whatever is to be done. I called my DIG and I said, now get all the files from that unit, wherever that posting, and take out everything, the correspondence between her and the officer and that lady inspector. So based on that evidence, I put everything on record that this is what was happening, and he is justified in asking her to go because that other inspector is requesting for accommodation. And put everything on record, and then that girl was found to be guilty and he was exonerated. He lost already 6 months, 7 months of his promotion. But what I want to say is that lady officers have a responsibility, and in any department, because our numbers are still very few. So very often, even in the executive world, in the corporate world, people will expect you to come out with straightforward things. And at that time, you can't be partisan. You should be fair to the men and the women in the organization. That is important. And if any woman is being harassed by her boss or anybody, don't take it lying down. Fix that man. But at the same time, if a woman is unnecessarily harassing the man, then the woman should be fixed.
It's interesting to hear you present a balanced picture of the issue because it sort of sometimes swings both ways. So it's important not to go too far on
you
either
have to
side.
get to the bottom of the whole thing. What exactly happened, and not just because somebody is saying something, you accept it.
You speak in the book. You speak about the challenges of being one of the 6 women in a batch filled with men at the NPA. What sorts of challenges did you face at the senior levels of the force? When it comes to women at the leadership level, what are some of the glass ceilings that sometimes they need to break through? Any advice for women at leadership levels in terms of breaking through some of these barriers you've noticed?
Just briefly, I will say that in the initial years, the breaking the glass ceiling was very tough for me. Every time you had to be sort of requesting the DG that please post me to a field, because for an IPS officer, if you do not do a field posting, then you're considered a person who's do only table jobs. So that doesn't work well for your career. The training of the IPS officer is at par with the men. There is nothing which my husband has done which I have not done. If he has done riding, if he has done firing, if he has done internal classes, indoor, outdoor classes, I've done exactly. If his uniform is like that, my uniform is also like that. If my shoe has to have 5 holes with the shoelace, his shoe also has to be with 5 holes and the lace. His belt has to be like this, even my belt. So there's no change. My cuff will be of so many inches, his cuff has to be also that many inches. So it is at par. And then you come and then the people say that, oh, you're a lady, where will you post you there? So the first 8 years of my career, there was a lot of pushback. Don't go here, don't go there, will not post you, what will you do, you don't want, I've been told, one chief minister said, I've been told you don't want to go out of Patna, you want to go out of Patna, I will post you. So it was like that. Suddenly out of the blue, Mr. Ribeiro selects me and he says, you go to the police academy. I'm the youngest faculty, my husband and I over there, to be on the NP, and then suddenly you're pushed into teaching IPS officers, and here there are these 100 boys, all toppers of their colleges and schools and competitive, and they will throw a question at you which you never thought of, So it was a challenge now to teach them. You're trained to be a police officer, but you're not trained to be a teacher there. Anyway, those had its own challenges. But once I went to the police academy, I never looked back. And why is it that I did not look back? So in another interview, somebody asked me that, what do you think is important, luck or hard work? So do you think luck plays a role, or you think hard work plays a role? I believe completely it is hard work. If it had not been my hard work and my performance, Mr. Ribeiro would not have selected me. So he selected me only because of my performance, that this is a lady officer. She will do well in the academy. We are looking for a lady. So both the things sort of combine and I'm selected for that. Later on in life also, it is only because of my performance. And Deepak, I don't want to boast, but every other posting after my NPA posting was on the request of the organization or my boss till the end. Even in my last posting, there was no post in that department and I requested that I should be given another place. We have this ranks. So there is no rank in the CISF for me when I got my promotion. So I should have moved out. I was ready to move out. I told the DG that now I'm moving out. He said, no, I'm going to get a posting here. I want you to stay on. So after that NPA posting, I never looked back and kept moving ahead and people requesting me to come and join. So what really pays? I think there is no alternative to hard work. Whether you're in the corporate sector, you must have experienced it yourself. Any job you do, whether you're a traffic constable or you're an officer in charge of a police station or you become the DG of the force, you have to put in your hard work. And momentarily, some politician these days will say, okay, he has selected you to be like this, selected you to be like that. Wants to give you these things also happen politically, or even in your organization, in the corporate sector, it might be a political thing, but hard work will never not pay you dividends. It really pays you dividends. And very early in my career, I was told that the chair is not important, the person is important. And even today, I believe in that the person is always important who comes to that chair, and you have to deliver there itself. So it's not that you occupy a big position and then only can you do something. Whatever job is given to you, do well, it will pay you dividends.
And on that, if I may, one is performing on the role, working hard. At senior levels as a woman leader, was there something about how you build relationships with in a positive way? How do you, one is doing the good work, the other is getting the word out. Is there anything on that front that you've experienced which has contributed to the journey?
Yes, I would say that the getting the word out, I didn't have to do it. If I did well, once I came to the government of India, being picked up here and there, it was only because of my performance and the good work being talked about by bosses. When my boss selected me to come to the CISF the second time, I did not even know who he was. And I've written in the book, he rang me up, I was in the hospital with my husband, he was very unwell, and he says that people here are telling me that you did a lot of good work, so I want you to be here. So the word goes around that you are hardworking. And Mr. Ribeiro also, when he's talked, Mr. Julius Ribeiro has been my role model for a long time and always. He's also sent a message for my book launch tomorrow, and he says that she had no role model, but she did so well that people got to know about her work and took her for various assignments, selected her for various assignments.
Ma'am, this podcast is titled Play to Potential. Given your journey, your experiences, what does this phrase mean to you, playing to potential?
Being a woman, I think that every woman should play a role which helps her to achieve the highest level of her potential. She should not hold back. And in all her roles, she should play the best possible role. Her effort should be always to get accepted and move ahead. That all her potential as a mother, as a wife, as a homemaker, in the office, in the organization she is working for, everywhere she should make sure that she achieves whatever the potential is in her to achieve. She should not hold back, or she should not feel discouraged by minor things. So pushing ahead, and I'm not saying pushing ahead in a bad way, that you don't do your work but you push ahead. I don't believe in that. But your potential, you have a potential to do a lot, and you must preserve your femininity and still move ahead.
Ma'am, it's a real privilege and an honor to spend time with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much.
I hope you found the conversation purposeful. Do take a moment to rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you consume the content. It will really mean a lot for us to get this podcast to others, and also will help us attract high-quality speakers who often look at these metrics when they make a decision. To know more about my work as an executive coach and a discreet sounding board with leaders, you can go to playtopotential.com and see the About Deepak section. That's playtopotential.com. Thank you, and look forward to having you at a subsequent conversation at the podcast. Bye now.